spent 2 weeks in Connecticut. Hima Karmaji was at Yale and Brown for some concerts and performances we did, and so I feel like we're just continuing that here, completely unplanned. There you go. So we'll start with a little invocation. Om Gyan Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritamya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Pradamayanam Tadaki Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudaparakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sasivam Sadvaitam Savadimtam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidhamsha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamine Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, thanks for inviting me today to Anadar Swami and Shri Manjari, who helped get me here. I've just come off out of the car, so I feel like my body is still moving, so I'm trying to chant these mantras to slow down. But when you're driving and you see the arrival time keep getting later and later, that was my case today. I was coming down. I was like, is everyone in Connecticut out driving today? That's what it felt like. But I'm really happy to be here today to talk a bit about some of the work I've done. And this is, I normally do this as a kind of a university class. So I'm trying to decide how to present this material today. And I think I hope everyone's inspired, but my class is kind of maybe less inspirational, more informational. The way I've been thinking about it, just sharing some of this. The content itself, I think, is very inspiring, but I'm kind of framing this as a course I might do at the university, but with a little more focus on the bhakti perspective. And I'll take out all those really boring academic theoretical things, so you don't have to listen to that. But what I wanted to talk today about is a genre of song you find in Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the Bengal region. In the current state of West Bengal and also in some degree Bangladesh as well. And it's a type of song called Gaur Chandrika. So, as you can probably surmise, Gaur Chandrika refers to Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya, right? There's kind of many names given to Lord Chaitanya that use the word Gora, right, referring to his golden form. So Gaur Chandrika is one, the golden moon, which is the title of today's talk. Gauranga, of course, is another, Gaur Shiromani. So there's this constant reference to the golden color of Chaitanya. And these Gaur Chandrika songs are, they're songs about Chaitanya, but they have a certain function, you could say, right, in the whole repertoire of Gaudiya songs. So not every song that's about Chaitanya will be a Gaur Chandrika song. The Gaur Chandrika songs play a role in that they are meant to, they're kind of like a ritual opening to the description of Radha and Krishna's Lila. And you have one there, we'll talk about it in just a moment, but these songs are kind of ritually significant in that they're kind of considered to be kind of a sonic doorway or an opening, right, to come into Radha Krishna Lila. And in one of these performances I'll talk about a bit today, known as a Lila Kirtan, one would never kind of just jump into the stories of Radha and Krishna without doing this Gaur Chandrika. And so that's how Kirtaniyas learn it. So to put this a little bit of context, how many people here have been to West Bengal or Mayapur? So many, I'm sure. And, there's so many different branches of Gaudiya Vaishnava practice that you find in West Bengal. And so I too had for many years been to Mayapur, and then in kind of an ISKCON context, maybe going to some Gaudiya Mutt temples as well. And then I'm a little bit contrarian, I guess. So I wanted to kind of go off the beaten path and find some other branches of Gaudiya Vaishnavism you find in West Bengal. And so I began to study with some kirtan gurus who live in different places in West Bengal, who are very, very appreciative of Srila Prabhupada and the work of ISKCON and the Gaudiya Mutt as well. But really, they represent a completely different social context, right, than what you'll find in ISKCON or Gaudiya Mutt temples. But what I found was really interesting is as you studied their songs and you studied the lectures they gave and the musical instruments they performed, you'd see this real crystallization of what you find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This incredible use of the Chaitanya Charitamrita in all the texts that one would find in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but in a completely, really separate path, right? They had learned from kind of generations of gurus who had taken the knowledge of Gaudiya Vaishnavism and the Chaitanya Charitamrita and put it in song and put it in these other musical and forms of oration, which was really interesting. So that's where you find these Gaur Chandrika songs, right? You don't find them as much in perhaps some of the places you might go. They're kind of, for me at least, a little bit off the beaten path. Maybe that's changed. I haven't been to Mayapur in a long time. I haven't been there in a while to the ISKCON place. Maybe it's becoming more popular there, but I studied a lot of this in Kolkata, which you tell like most devotees, like, I want to go live in Kolkata for a year. It's like the last place I think a lot of people want to go, right? Our experience maybe land in the Kolkata airport and like as quickly as possible, get a Tata and head to Mayapur to get out of the chaos. But I stayed there for a while. And although really a lot of Gaudiya Vaishnava forms aren't kind of urban forms in the way we think of a lot of popular music, right? They're not kind of from the city. It's more from rural areas. Nevertheless, a lot of this became established in Kolkata or Calcutta over the years, right? So that's kind of what I want to talk a bit about. What is this repertoire of song? How does it how does it function in these kirtan performances you have, which I'll talk a bit about, and how is it how does it represent how does it present rather a theology of Chaitanya and Chaitanya's relationship with Radha and Krishna and the Lila. So with that, I thought, just to start off, we could, so you get a little bit of a framework for what I'm talking about here, we could just start off with this first song here. So I gave you a handout, and then right at the top here, there's a little table, and you'll see this song or poem, poem. There's not really like a huge distinction between songs and poetry in a lot of expressive forms you find in South Asia, right? In fact, they go by the word pada, verse, right? And those verses can be recited by individuals, or they can be sung in a group, what have you. They can simply be read quietly. But they're poetry in the sense that they use kind of aestheticized language, right? Difference between poetry and prose is that prose doesn't adhere to a meter or maybe forms of rhyme in the same way poetry do. So this is poetry in the sense that there's a certain meter here, there's a certain sense of rhyme, there's certain poetic devices that are used in terms of alliteration or what have you. So this is one Gaur Chandrika song we can talk a bit about. If I really get brave later, I'll try to sing some of it, but I'm a little bit out of practice, so we'll see. But Hema Karma is here. He can always support me with all his knowledge of Tal. So this is a song in the Gaur Chandrika repertoire. So Gauranga Chandera Mone Ki Bhav Utilo Nodiyar Majhe Gora Dan Shira Jilo. You can already kind of hear the meter, right? This is it's called Payara, which is a very common meter for this genre. And the language here is Middle Bengali. Some people might call it medieval Bengali, right? So, if you were just kind of walking in the streets of West Bengal today and you spoke this to someone, any Bengali speakers here today? No. Often there is, and they'll, admit to knowing not a lot of the vocabulary, right? It's kind of an older form. It's like maybe not quite Chaucer in English, but something like that, right? If you like read really old English, you're like, I half know what this is about. So this is a more literary form that wouldn't be spoken today. But this first couplet, that's when you have two lines together. The translation that I did here, it says, "What feeling arose in the mind of the moon-like Chaitanya? In Nodia, Chaitanya began the dawn." So this is some people here know the Dawn Lila. What it's about? Who wants to say? I ask lots of questions in my class. So if you think you're going to sit there and not participate, you're in trouble. In fact, I'm even going to have you clapping these out in a minute. What's the Dawn Lila in short? Yeah, the Dawn. So Dawn Shila Jila, the Dawn Lila, right? Dawn is a term that has a lot of different meanings. If you go back further into Sanskrit literature, dawn means kind of a ritual offering, okay, that someone's supposed to give to the deity. In this context, of course, dawn means the tax episode. Krishna dresses up as a dani in this lila, so he pretends to be a tax collector, and he stops Radha and her what's that? Radha and her crew on the way to the market, right? And he demands a road tax for the goods they're bringing to sell, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So that's the first line, right? So here you have, what's kind of the most obvious thing that's happening here to Chaitanya in this first couplet? We associate the Dawn Lila with Krishna, right? But here we have throughout this whole verse, Chaitanya is kind of imagining that he himself is Krishna, right? And he's performing this road tax episode. So that's the first couplet. Then the next one, Are moro, amar gora dvijamani, vetradiya aguliya rakai taruni. Oh my, our Chaitanya, the gem of the twice-born, with sticks he kept the young women from proceeding. So, well, there's a little context that can sound a little bit um, unusual, but basically Chaitanya is using a stick to block the pathway, right? And so here we have not the gopis who are on the way to the market, but it is the kind of the young women of Nodia, right, or Nobadwi, doing that. And then the next, Dan Deho, Boli Gora Dake, Nodia Nagari, Shobho Porilo Vipake. Give me the tax, shouts Chaitanya. All the young girls of Nodia fell into distress. And then the last line, Krishna Ovatare, Ami Shariyat Chidan, She Bhava Porilamone, Bashu Goshe Gan. So as Krishna, I played this fee-taking role before. That's kind of Chaitanya speaking. And then my mind fell into that feeling, sings Basu Ghosh. So Basu Ghosh here is what is referred to as the Podakarta, the composer, right, the person who wrote this song. So contemporary of Chaitanya, the Ghosh, Vasudev Ghosh was. And so you had a lot of these songs written beginning during the life of Chaitanya, right? The Gaur Chandrika songs, and they were written in a couple centuries that followed as well, right? So that's called the signature, the Bhanita. Whenever you find a Vaishnav song, usually the author of the song puts his name, and it is pretty much exclusively a male group, puts his name in the final couplet, and that's how you know who wrote it. So, it's a very practical form of determining authorship. It's not like watertight. You have often debates over the centuries about, well, did this person really write that song? Or did, someone put that person's name in the song so it kind of be more popular, right? Like if I could write a song and somehow say like Taylor Swift says at the end, and then I could make a lot of money on it. That's not an exact comparison, but that's the idea. So you had a crude example, yeah, a crude example. But you have that. So if there was a really famous composer in following centuries, you have other people who start to put so and so wrote this, even though they didn't, and it. So there's kind of debates about that. And you find this in a lot of the North Indian bhakti traditions as well. I know the Pushti Marg, Hima Kamrapu is telling me you find this, well, the chop, the signature, you find it a lot of the poetry. So it's quite common, right? So kind of what is this song doing at a very basic level? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's there for sure. What are some of the? I mean, you have these kind of shape ha porilo, right? Like what's that? A summary, yeah. I mean, kind of what I'm thinking of is even more obvious, right? It's taking a lila of Krishna, and it's like putting Chaitanya in Krishna's spot. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what's happening here. Yeah. No, that's what they all do. Yeah, exactly. Sorry if I didn't make that clear, but this is what Gaur Chandrika lyrics do. They come at the beginning of an expression of a Krishna Lila, usually, and they are this kind of way of saying, okay, you want to hear about Krishna's Lila, you have to start here, and you have to imagine Chaitanya in Krishna's spot. And there are some few Gaur Chandrika lyrics too, where Chaitanya is put in the position of Radha. That's perhaps less common, but that does happen as well, right? So it's this way of kind of before saying that before one can hear of Krishna's Lila, one has to have an understanding of Chaitanya. Now, for me, and I guess for a lot of folks, you learn of Krishna's Leelas after already knowing about Chaitanya to some degree, right? Gail's not so sure about that. I knew nothing about any of Krishna's Leelas, before I met devotees from Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
There's so many. Chaitanya is like such an esoteric personality. I mean, people, yeah, they don't even know him.
Gail is saying Chaitanya is very esoteric, so many people in India don't know about him. Yeah.
They know Krishna Lila.
Yeah.
But they don't know about Chaitanya, so that's why.
Okay. Well, okay, so everyone here in this room who knew a lot about Krishna Lilas before knowing about Chaitanya? A few people.
I remember which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Well, okay, all right. Point being that, for example, the Dan Lila of Krishna's tax collector Lila was very popular in Bengal before Chaitanya's appearance, right? So you find this Leela in what's called the Sri Krishna Kirtan, which is a earlier text written by someone named Bodhu Chandidas, right? And even before that, you have this story of a tax collector stopping young women on the road, going back even before that centuries, right? But the first place you hear about it or at least the first record we have of it in Bengal written is in a book that was written before Chaitanya, right? So the point being, people already knew about Krishna's Leelas, right, before the appearance of Mahaprabhu in Bengal. And so songs like this, when we see it, we might think, okay, yeah, this makes, at least myself, this makes sense. They're putting Chaitanya into this role of Krishna, right? Which is something maybe we know in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But when these songs were first written, this was a very novel idea, right? This was a new idea that somehow Chaitanya was actually Krishna. That wasn't an accepted fact, right?
Yeah.
And so there were different ways people tried to make this point. Some were through, sacred biographies, the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, etc., etc. And another place where this work happened was through songs like this, right? That a song like this would be a way of kind of giving people the sense that that actually Chaitanya is none other than Krishna come, right? Because Chaitanya here is performing the same leelas that Krishna performed. And there's a very specific way that it happens linguistically in a lot of these songs. The first verse, what feeling arose in the mind of Moonlight Chaitanya? In other words, so there's this kind of way that Chaitanya is remembering in a lot of ways that he's Krishna. That happens in these songs. And he's kind of becoming entranced in a way, And so depending on whatever lila there is that one wants to sing through song, there's one of these Gaur Chandrika songs. So the Ras Lila is a very famous kirtan that's performed. And there's a specific Gaur Chandrika that precedes that Ras Lila. And etc., etc. The Noka Vilas, which is like the boat pastime of Radha and Krishna. So that Leela will have a certain Gaur Chandrika that begins. Talks about Chaitanya on a boat, actually, right? Remembering he's Krishna. So in all of these different cases, you find this Leela of Chaitanya. You find this Leela of Krishna expressed through Chaitanya. So that's a basic gist of it all, right? Yeah.
That Krishna songs always describe the Lila that actually happened with Lord Chaitanya that connects them to Krishna Lila, or is yeah, basically, does it always describe the Lila that happened in real life with Lord Chaitanya, or is it kind of to connect the person, you know, to Krishna Lila through Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna, but it didn't necessarily really take place?
That's a good question. And I guess we don't really know in some ways. A lot of the Gaur Chandrika songs are written by contemporaries of Chaitanya. So to what extent does that represent a record of what they experienced, right? To what extent? Because I think a lot of these leelas of Chaitanya that you find in Gaur Chandrika songs, you won't find in some of the, which I think you're getting at, which you won't find in some of the sacred biographies, right? So it's a good question. I think we it's obvious that there's many leelas that Chaitanya performed that weren't written down in those sacred biographies, right? And so, in some way, this represents a record, I think, of a lot of Chaitanya's contemporaries. But Gaur Chandrika songs were also written after Lord Chaitanya as well, right? And so that the question of temporality always comes up, and a lot of these padas, these verses are thought to be meditations that the authors have while kind of in a focused state of visualization, right? Some kind of record of a reality that they experience through meditation, which of course we see in a lot of the texts of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that can occur, right? Does that kind of answer your question? Okay, so that's kind of the basic of Gaura Chandrika, but where do these happen? So if you are in West Bengal, you're perhaps living in in a small village somewhere outside of one of the major cities. You might find yourself one day going downtown to the market in the evening, and they've closed down a street, and someone has set up a pandal, kind of a small tent, and lights and a sound system, and they're preparing for a concert. And so what it would be is a group of musicians, kirtaniyas, who have been hired by a local kirtan committee. This is a thing. A lot of villages have this kirtan committee. You'll find like a local temple or thing, they'll have a group who's in charge of organizing the kirtan. Right? It's not always kind of Gaudiya things. There's all kinds of cultural events, but a couple times a year they'll raise enough money to hire a kirtan. They're called shompradai, which kind of translates as band. There's a little different when I say like a band. I think it means something a little different than this, but essentially it is a group of musicians who come. And so they could be setting up in the middle of the village in the evening to do a lila kirtan or a pala kirtan. So what's going to happen is for 3 to 4 hours, these musicians are going to perform there in the middle of the village, in essence for free, for the community, although they're being paid by a local committee or something like that. And for 3 to 4 hours, they're going to tell a story through song and storytelling together, right? Maybe people here have been to like a Bhagavat Katha in India, or a Bhagavat Saptaha, where for a day or a week, kind of a pundit will tell stories from the Bhagavatam. Every once in a while, it will stop and there will be a song. You did a Bhagavat Katha? Okay.
It was a musical.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is a similar thing, and people come up and they're going to sit there for 3 or 4 hours, and it's going to be a mix of songs and storytelling and kind of preaching, right? That's going to go on for 3 to 4 hours. And at the center of it is going to be a lila or a pala. Pala is another way of saying pala means like an episode or a story. There's going to be a lila of Radha and Krishna, right? In some cases, a lila of Chaitanya as well. But in most cases, usually it's a Radha Krishna lila, right? And so they might come and do the Dan lila. They might come and do the Rash lila. Another popular one is called Noka Vilash. It's the story of Radha and Krishna in a boat. There's Purbarag is another very popular one. It's Radha's infatuation with Krishna. That's a very popular one as well. There's the Mathur Lila, when Krishna leaves Vrindavan for Mathura. That's another one that's told. So there's dozens and dozens of these, and the musicians will show up and tell this whole story. But the story will start with a certain ritual order that's gone through, and this Gaur Chandrika is part of it, right? Now, the songs are at the heart of this. The songs that are at the heart of this come from a genre called the Podabali, the Vaishnav Podabali, right? So these are Gaur Chandrika will be part of this repertoire, right? And these are songs that primarily focus on Radha Krishna Leelas, right? So there's different types of kirtan, right? There's, Nam Kirtan is kind of one we're most familiar with. And if you go through kind of the songs of the Vaishnavacharya's book that we have, there's different types of kirtan in there. For the most part, you won't find the songs of the Lila Kirtan in the songs of the Vaishnavacharyas, but you'll find different categories. You'll find Arti Kirtan, right? So a type of song that's performed during the Arti ceremony. You'll find Vandana Kirtan. It's like kirtan songs of praise, right? So a Bandhana Kirtan would be kind of talking about the qualities of Radha and Krishna, talking about the qualities of Chaitanya. Not so much describing a narrative, right? Saying Chaitanya is like this, Chaitanya is like that, Krishna is like this, Krishna is like that, This very popular song we know, Joy Radha Madhava, considered like kind of a Bandhana Kirtan. I've actually seen Kirtaniyas who will take that, even though it was written kind of later, right? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they take that and they'd use it for Bandhana Kirtan. So it's a song of praise. Sorry, Bhima's hearing all this again. He heard this amazing lecture by one of my gurus, Dr. Kankana Mitra. She was talking all about this, and the poor guy says it through it again. But Bandhana Kirtan is a song of praise, right?
Also prayer.
Vandana.
Vandana, from the lens of devotion to Vandana. Is that the word?
Yeah, 9 processes of bhakti.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I pronounce everything with the Bengali thing.
No.
Vandana, yes.
No, yeah, Vandana. So you're saying that it means praise.
Praise.
But I'm used to hearing Vandana as translated prayer.
So prayers would be prarthana.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm praying to you and saying, "Oh Krishna, please," that's a prarthana. I'm praying to you. But Vandana, you are like this. Look at her pink earrings; they're so nice.
That's Vandana.
Yeah.
But
if I pray to you,
as Prarthana.
yeah.
But in the one of the 9 processes, where the Akura is the exemplar for one Akura, the translation is prayer. Prayer, it's not praise.
Yeah, praise would be like Vandana, right?
Yeah, praise.
You are so great at this way and that way.
I can't comment on how it was translated in a certain way. I mean, just, yeah.
Actually, like Vandana. English just doesn't
Yeah.
make that division so clear.
Yeah, I think it's a case of difficulty in translation, right?
That's what I
Prayer.
have to come after class.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, yeah. Prayers. So prayers versus praise. Like praise is often associated with a king or a queen, right? One would praise a king when they come before a king. Like you are so powerful. You are, giving food to everyone in the kingdom, etc.,
My
etc.
question is, in the list of the 9 classes where London is listed,
Mhm.
is the translation prayers or praise?
I don't know.
praise. One
It's praise.
in the nine process of
Praise. Okay.
not making a prayer for asking
Uh-huh.
actual praise the Lord.
God. So many decades. First time I'm understanding that this is.
Yeah, praise. So prayer would be kind of more personal, right? Oh,
Yeah.
Krishna, I'm so fallen. Please give me mercy, right? We just did this really beautiful Prarthana song by Vidyapati in the 14th century. Kind of last week as an example of this Prarthana, where the devotee is, saying, "You are the savior of the fallen. Who could be more fallen than me?" Basically, right?
Yeah,
So there's a
yeah.
yeah. As with all categories, there's you draw a line somewhere, and there might be examples that challenge where that line is. But in some, there's a difference between praise, vandana kirtan, and prarthana kirtan. One is for praising, and one is the devotee's prayer, actually. With Narottam Das's prarthana, right? It's kind of like a famous example, right? And that's really what you see there. So, so there's all these different there's all these different categories of kirtan, right? If you go through the songs of the Vaishnava acharyas, you'll see many examples of the bandhana kirtan, the praise, prarthana, the prayers, like this, the arati kirtan, right? But you don't see a lot of songs that are about the lila, the pala of Radha and Krishna, right? But it's a huge repertoire. There's thousands and thousands of songs. There's one anthology called Sri Sri Padakalpataru, which is probably the most comprehensive um, anthology. It has over 4,000 songs. And all the songs are organized according to the particular rasa, the particular mood that the song is meant to evoke. And each Lila Radha Krishna is associated with a mood, a specific mood of the Shringara or the Madhurya Ras, right? The love of Radha and Krishna. So all these songs actually they were compiled in the late 19th century and early 20th century from manuscripts, right? So for centuries and centuries, there were Vaishnav poets who were writing these padas, writing these verses, and there'd be someone in a certain region who was collecting them and writing them down, and they were in all these handwritten manuscripts that Bengali professors and literati became fascinated with in the late 19th century and started actually publishing them. And so you can go today and purchase these anthologies of thousands and thousands of songs, many in this kind of middle Bengali dialect. Some are in a language called Brajbuli, which is a language that was never really spoken. It was a language that was only used for composition as a way to kind of express these songs. And so that's where all of these songs come from, right? So in one of these 3 or 4 hour kirtans, a kirtaniya will learn from his or her guru, and there's many prominent male and female gurus in the tradition. One of the most famous kirtaniyas is someone named Saraswati Das. She's from Navadvip, really well-known kirtaniya who one of my teachers studied with. And what they'll do is, a guru will start to teach, okay, now we're going to learn the Ras Lila, right? So you start with this invocation, then you sing this Gaura Chandrika, right? So the Gaura Chandrika song I showed you is what, 4 couplets? I mean, how long did it take us to chant it? 30 seconds. But in an actual performance, those 4 couplets could take an hour to perform. One reason is there's this very slow moving musical style that the songs are performed to. And the other is that in between each verse, a kirtaniya will stop and will, tell a story based on one of the verses, preach to the audience based on one of the verses, sing another song based on one of the verses, and then half an hour later be like, okay, let's go to the next one. And so it'll just kind of take a very long time. So specifically the Gaura Chandrika verse is so interesting because they're one place where you can find this very, very old musical style that you don't find a lot of popular kirtan. And so that's there as well. And so that's kind of what the whole Vaishnav Paravali tradition is, right? This huge tradition of poetry, mostly about Radha and Krishna, some about Chaitanya, and then someone will draw from this tradition and draw from these other stories they've heard from their guru and create this 3-4 hour Lila Kirtan performance, right, that'll go on. So that's kind of where you find this. And so when one does this Lila Kirtan, there's certain stages that one goes through. So just like when we started today, we chanted some verses, right? Om again, Timarandasya, this kind of ritual beginning. And so you have the same in the Lila Kirtan. Every single one will start with a certain number of ritual events. So the first is what's called dhani. It's this kind of sonic invocation. They go Joy Joy, Nath, Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, and the drums will play. So that always happens first. And then next will be what's called a hatuti, which is kind of a solo percussion performance. Then after that, there'll be actually kind of what's called an alap, which is a rag-based improvisation of some way. And then after that, one will perform the Gaura Chandrika, right? And so the whole invocation part may last, not a super long time, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then when one gets to the Gaura Chandrika, that's the moment where the audience understands, oh, this is what the actual Leela, the actual story will be for this performance. And then one will do the Gaura Chandrika song. And then after that, one begins telling the stories of Radha and Krishna, right? But one has to go in all those certain orders, right? So the Gaura Chandrika is this kind of very important kind of sonic entryway to the Leelas of Radha and Krishna. And so for that, there's a lot of importance given to it in the way it's sung, the musical style that's used, and all these different facets of its performance. And so what's really interesting too, I think, is that what time does this go till? 2:30, 2:45? Does anyone know? We lost our timekeeper. Okay, Gordon Wall's going to find out. What's really interesting, I think, is that if you find this this order, right, that the kirtan starts with this solo percussion performance, and then this vocal improvisation, and then the Gaura Chandrika, and then the Radha Krishna Lila. It's very set like that, even today. People, for the most part, will not, deviate from. What time did we go to?
Sounds right. Whenever
Just beginning.
No, I was at the beginning, but the whole point of the lecture was the beginning, how to begin a lila. So,
you said 45 minutes.
oh my God. Okay, I'll wrap up.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I have 15 minutes. Okay, thank
I
you.
thought he was just getting started.
So there's this order, which really interesting. If you go back, so there's a kind of a well-known text called the Bhakti Ratnakara, which tells the story of this really important kirtan festival called the Khetri Mela. If you haven't read Satyaraj Prabhu's book, Vaishnav Saints, go read it. He talks all about that there. And what's really interesting is that you see the same order as written about in the Bhakti Ratnakar, right? It's very clear that it starts with a solo percussion performance, there's a vocal improvisation, there's the Gora Chandrika song, and then one does the Radha Krishna Lila. And so it's been, since at least 18th century, when this was written, it's been kept that way by centuries worth of musicians who follow that exact same form. Right?
Are you also familiar with
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Narottam Bilash is saying what's interesting in Narottam Bilash though too is it talks more about the musical style. It talks about, so this is Narottam Das Thakur. People are surely pretty familiar with Narottam Das Thakur. He's thought to be the originator, right, of the Lila Kirtan, the Podavali Kirtan style. And so in the Narottam Bilash, it talks about Narottam Das Thakur and how he actually plays this very slow musical style with the Gora Chandrika, which is what you still find today. It's probably become a little faster than it was back then, but in some ways it's been very slow. And so maybe we can perform a little bit of these songs so you can hear a little bit what they sound like. Yeah. Yes.
But weren't you saying that actually the format, the Padawali style of doing things was already there? So, but then when Mahaprabhu came, putting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into that drama.
So, right, so that's a good distinction. So the Padavali poetry dates back before the life of Chaitanya. So people would say there's a pre-Chaitanya period of composition, and that would be Jaidev, the Geet Govind, Vidyapati, Varu Chandidas. These are people who lived before Chaitanya and performed that style of poetry. But then those compositions continued in the life of Chaitanya and after. In terms of the musical style of what today we associate with Podavali Kirtan, people would credit that to Narottam Das Thakur. He was the one who came up with this musical style.
Not ordinary, is that not what was it?
I don't think people say there's not one person who started it. In general, it was different people during the life of Chaitanya who wrote this poetry. Certainly, Vasudev Ghosh, his songs are very popular. Yeah, there's a lot by Vasudev Ghosh that are considered to be written during the life of Chaitanya, right?
But this style you're saying, right, and in Narottam Bilash, that's kind of like the first place where it says it even separates out these different, right, Karanhati versus the, styles.
Yeah, people would say that would be the Godinhati, because that's where the Khetri festival, if you want to get nerd out on the musical style of it, which we could do all day here. It might not be as interesting as everyone else, but the original musical style of the Padavali Kirtan from Narottam Das Thakur was called Godinhati, because it was from the district, Gaderhat, where Khetri was. Yeah. Yeah, that's, people say Narottam Das Thakur studied in Braj. And the theory is he studied with someone there named Swami Haridas, who was this original Vaishnav musician. And from him, many different devotional musical styles kind of came. So Dhrupad, which is a North Indian classical style, people would say to Swami Haridas, the Haveli Sangeet as well, in some ways, right? Yeah, Dhrupad based. So people refer to it as classical. What that means is often is a very slow moving form, and there's improvisation as well that happens vocally. In what you find today in Podavali Kirtan, you find there's some slowness. It's not all slow, but even to go back to the early 20th century, I would talk to some people who I met this one man. His father studied in the early 20th century with this one musician from Braj, and he would say, like, this person really knew the Godinhati, and one song could go on for hour and a half or 2 hours, something like that. So not not that slow today, but it's still in some ways quite slow. Does that answer your question now? Okay. All right.
I just want to know if I got this straight. Fidelity. The fidelity is a thing that it begins with, let's say, the profession and then all these ritualistic elements, right?
Yeah.
And then the final one before the actual chanting.
Yeah.
So all that together is called the fidelity.
All that together is called a Lila Kirtan or a Pala Kirtan.
So then what's fidelity?
But Podabali just refers to, so if I did a concert and I picked a song from the repertoire here, I picked a song there, I picked another song. They weren't all about one Lila. That would be a Podabali performance, Podabali Kirtan performance. But if I want to focus on one Lila only, then people call it Lila Kirtan.
I wonder if it's the same thing. I usually see, like, Rupa Goswami, he wrote this thing.
Padyavali, yeah.
It's a different word? Or
It's
word?
the same derivation, but it's slightly different.
Oh.
In the Podavali, there wouldn't be the Y. I think it has something to do with Sanskrit Sandhi, but I'm not a Sanskritist. So it would be Podavali, but it's the same derivation. What Podavali means, Abali means a series of padas. So it's a group of verses. That's what Podavali means. Yeah, so Podavali Kirtan means you're doing a group of verses together in Kirtan. So it's just a very general reference. Best way to think of it is it's not Nam Kirtan. Like Nam Kirtan, Hare Krishna, or other recitations of names is Nam Kirtan. Podavali Kirtan is you're singing verses. They could be from the Bandhana, they could be from the praise or the prayers, they could be from the Lila, but it's you're focusing on the poetry. Devotional sung poetry is one way I think about it. Does that make sense? And now if you take from that repertoire and you're like, oh, I just want to do a performance that focuses on one Lila, that would be this 3/4 Lila Kirtan. Yeah. Pala Kirtan. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Oh yeah. Okay. That's a beautiful name, right? Yeah. Okay, so I made this really cool handout, so we got to do just a little bit of it. Well, you might not think it's cool. I think it's really cool. Okay, so one sings the first line of the Gaur Chandrika here, Goranga Chander Maniki Bhavutilo. That will always be accompanied by this one tal called the Shom tal. So often, tal refers to kind of a meter, right? It's a rhythmic cycle. It's a way to count how many, what we say are matra, or how many beats are in a cycle, right, before it repeats. So the most common kind of tal we often hear in kirtan is dashbahira, which is 8 matra, right? Ta, ta, rude, te, ta, ki, ruda, ji, ne, da, ge, da. That's 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And doesn't take too long. Kind of dance to it, clap to it. It's not too slow. So this is not dance music, Shomta. This is, put it mildly, there's 28 matra, 28 beats in one cycle. Instead of 8, yeah. And it goes very slow. And it's, in a sense, we call it asymmetric because it's made up of uneven subdivisions, right? So if you look at it there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then it goes back 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 8.
So I'm supposed to know what you're referring to.
There's numbers there. On next page. There. So, and then that line of text, Goranga Chandar Manaki Bhavutilo, is set to this tal, right? So I put these, there's 2 things there. On the top, it says it's the Bangla Bengali term for the matra. So you see tal, kal, fank, kal, khol, kal, fank, kal. That's kind of what I refer to as the type. That's the type of beat it is. And each one of those is associated with a hand movement. Okay? So I wrote clap, up, forward, up, back. I'll show you what it means. But clap is a clap. Up means one raises their hand kind of in front of your eyes, right? And then the forward, you go kind of away from your body like this, up like this, back, you pull your hand next to your body, and then up, and then forward, and then up, and then clap. And so this is a way to learn it, but this is also what performers would do in a performance. This is moving very slow, and if you have a cartel player like me who's not paying attention, you're kind of like spacing out, and you can watch and see someone's hand movement and get back on track, right? So let me do the first 8, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's just the first 8, right? Now the second 8 is the same, right? And then beginning on 17, it's a shortened one, it's half. So this is 17, 18, 19, 20, and then 21 is a. So now you all have to do this. And what I tell all my students is if you clap where you're not supposed to, you get points off. Points off your grade. You get points off your grade. All right? So I'll go ready, go, and then we'll do 1. Okay? And we'll go like this. 1, 2, that's speed. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 27, 28, 1. And the first dollar, well, we went back. At 28, you go back to 1. So that's 1 time through. That's cool, right?
Yeah, I want to do it fast.
Well, it starts out very slow like that, and then the speed gradually increases. Yeah. It has a certain vibe to it. Okay, I'm gonna embarrass myself and try to sing. I'm gonna embarrass myself now and try to sing the first line. I practiced it once on Friday because I haven't done this in years. So bear with me if I get messed up, and you all can do the pattern of the clap wave pattern as we say, right? Okay, and what's that? We'll count on Hema Karma Boo. He goes on track. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just follow you.
Okay, so it starts off Goranga Chan. There. On there is the song. Yeah. Okay. Goranga Chan. Dero. Oh. Chandero. Oh, oh, Chandero more, Jaki Baba Utilo Ahamori Mori Bhavanidiyama Go Hari Gaurang Go Gauranga Chan Jero. That's once through. Sorry for my really shaky singing, but it's hard to keep track of where you are and sing that whole thing. And it's usually done much slower, actually, too, right? Yeah, much slower. So certain words are repeated, but that was once. Yeah.
Okay, so we went through 28. Wait a minute.
So there's a lot of what you call melisma, right? Which is like
The
many
couplet,
syllables on one.
by the time you finish the first couplet, right, you have one up to 28?
Yeah, that was 28. Yeah.
Just the first couplet.
Yeah. Okay, so I can hear people getting hungry. So let's okay. Let's quickly go through the rest. So if you go back to that first page there, you see how I have that section that says Ganer Muk. So this is the first couple. You go through these different sections. So we just sang that Goranga Chander Mane to the Shom Tal. Right there. So Ganer Muk means this is the face of the song. Yeah, Ganer Muk means this is the face of the song. So once you hear this part, you kind of know the song. Just as if you see someone's face, you kind of know them, right, where the song gets presented.
The whole face.
Okay, so then after the first line, you have the katan, which we're not going to do. And the katan says, Aj puraber bhave bibor hoy ahamori goranga chande. And so it gets a little faster, and there's a different pattern played by the khol, or the mridanga. It says, today my moonlight goranga is absorbed in a previous emotional state, right? So this always comes back. It's Chaitanya is remembering he's Krishna, right? That's kind of the mood of the Gaura Chandrika. Like he was just out doing his Brahmin thing in Navadvip, and all of a sudden, he gets overcome with this, and he falls into this emotional state of Krishna, and you start acting the Leelas of Krishna. And then after that is something called the Jamali, which we're not going to do, but it's kind of just vocative phrases calling out to Chaitanya. And now I thought we could do the second line of the couplet. So if the first line of the couplet is in this 28 matra Shom Tal, it gets easier for you all, because the second line is in something called the Biram Dashkoshi Tal. So if you go to the back of the first page, and you see the Biram Dashkoshi Tal, you'll see immediately it's half, right? Instead of 28, it's 14. So basically what happened is all these matras called the kal are removed. And so all these ups you were doing, you can forget all about those. This one is just the forward and the back. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 1. Right? So it's the same thing, but kind of put into half, right? You play a lawyer for
I don't
this?
know the actual taker for that. I know the Shumpal and the Dashkushi
Um,
I can do the Madhyam Dashkushi one for it.
yeah,
Okay.
they always very similar
This
one.
part, yeah.
Yeah, Majjam Dashkoshi. Yeah, so it's just
Fine.
okay. And so now we got to sing this one, and I'm going to ask all of you to sing it. So you're in trouble.
Well, we can't sing and do this.
I'll sing it through once. It starts on. It goes. So you have the lyrics there, right? Nodia romaje, Nodia maje goradan shirojilo, right? Yeah. There's a little. You see it there, right? Nodia romaje, Nodia romaje, Nadia romaje gora. So the Nadia romaje you repeat 3 times. Maje Gora Dan Shiro Ji Lo Nadiaro Maje. And again. Nodiaro Maje. One more time. Nodiaro Maje Gora Dan Shiro Ji Lo Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje Gora Dan Shiro Ji Lo Nadiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje Gora Dan Shiro Ji Lo. Now you got to do the clap wave with it too, Gil. I'm just kidding. So the first Maje is the shum. Nadiaro Maje. Yeah. Nadiaro Maje. Nadiaro Maje Gora Dan Shiro Ji Lo. Okay, ready?
It's like we missed the prerequisites for this class.
Yeah, I know. You don't get prasadam unless we do this.
Okay.
I'm putting you all on the fast track here. This is usually like, you can take lessons for a month, but I only have an hour, so I do.
You see?
Maje. Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje Gora. Shiro Ji Lo Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje Gora. Shiro Ji Lo Nadiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje Gora. Shiro Ji Lo Nadiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje. Nodiaro Maje Gora. Shiro Ji Lo Nadiaro Maje. All right, pretty good, pretty good. Gail's not happy. So I mean, the kind of one thing that's interesting perhaps is that you have these asymmetric patterns, right, which are very different than kind of the nam kirtan or things we do usually. So I always like to think about, well, why did someone make this pattern, complicate this pattern? I mean, there's ways it fits in well with the theory, the music theory, the tal theory behind the tradition. But there's also kind of this bigger picture that I think when you have a lot of this devotional poetry and you have this pattern, kind of helps you engage with it in a way. I find you have to really think about where you are in the poem. Think about where. Makes you pay attention. It's part of it. What's that? And not zone out. I mean, if you do this long enough, you
I
can.
think it also creates that we get out of it. Sway inside of it. That
Yeah.
Really stirs
Yeah.
up the emotion. Well, I was thinking, when we first started here, I was like, this really, I think, so well the attitude or approach towards yoga or bhakti here, that philosophy plays a role of putting some substance, giving you something to chew on, so to speak. But the actual process that we're in is this: we need to emotionally engage, and this is really what this is all. It's so great.
What's the point?
I'm so happy to hear you.
Oh, thanks for adding that. No, that's really helpful. Yeah, when you have when we go to look at when we listen to music or we go to look at artistic forms, right? We're looking at those forms, right? And those forms aren't always symmetric. They aren't always square, right? The form of the body isn't always symmetric, and the way we move isn't always, right? And so there's also a movement to this too. There's a way it kind of propels by having this asymmetric form. And you really find it throughout classical music forms in South Asia. It's very common to have asymmetric metric patterns in North Indian and South Indian classical music. Much less popular in popular music, for example, right, which is all about keeping things symmetric. So there's like something to dance to. And I kind of what I said before was a little bit tongue in cheek. You can't dance to it. I mean, there is a way you can, if you know the form, right? And that's what's so interesting about it is as your body can interact with the musical sound in a different way if you really know where it's going and how it's moving. So I think what you said is really true. So with that, I'm certain I must be out of time. What happens next?
We will start off the show now.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
Hi.
coming. We hope to have you back again.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya Tanmadhyasya Tondvayari Taratashcharteshva Vignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yat Surya Tejo Vari Mridang Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dharna Svena Sada Mirasakuhatam Satyam Param Dhimahi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vasudevaya